Are you ready to embrace a healthier, more vibrant life? Look no further than With Joy, a transformative movement and nutrition program that goes beyond the ordinary. We believe that true wellness encompasses mind, body, and spirit. We're here to elevate you to a place of health, wellness, and healing. Whether you're a seasoned athlete or just starting your fitness journey, we've got something for you. Our comprehensive programs include strength, mobility, endurance, and conditioning to elevate your fitness, recovery and recuperation for healing, and nutrition wellness plans to fuel your body for optimal performance. Check out our show notes for more information and links to our programs. Join the With Joy movement today and discover a whole new way to thrive. Hi, beautiful listeners. Laura here. Before we get started, I wanted to give you a content warning. Today's episode contains cursing and depictions of emotional, psychological, and physical manipulation and abuse. Between minutes 32 to 34, there will be mention of suicidal thinking, which I know can be distressing. Listener discretion advised. And please take good care of yourself. If you need mental health resources and support, please call 988 in the United States or connect with a mental health provider in your area. Thanks so much. Now, without further ado.
Hi, I'm Joy Han Silva.
And I'm Laura Han Segundo Collins.
And welcome to Hahnacity.
Hey.
Hi. How are you feeling?
So this is going to actually be a lot easier, believe it or not, even though it incorporates the end of my career. The last episode, which was the arm break before the state meet, that was harder, I think, for a couple of reasons. One is I'd never been injured before. That was a massive trauma. By the way, thank you all so much for listening, being with me through that, because it's not something I want to think about and nobody ever wants to. But the second thing was that was the beginning of the change of my personality. I realized then that these people could hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
You better listen up, because you could get really hurt if you don't listen to them and do exactly what they want.
So that's like a really good place to start, because we talked about your childhood and the type of kid that you were on the earlier episodes. And you're saying there was a personality shift pretty shortly after this break.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that. Who is Laura after that break?
I think after that, my focus was I just need to get better. I need to get healthy and keep moving on. I still liked mastering stuff for myself. I still had my friends. Thankfully, I had really good friends, but I definitely did not have that sheer hyperness that I had before. That absolute joy wasn't there. There was more of a compliance. I guess that's for lack of a better word. It felt like I got in line. I am now part of the military. I am making my bed and standing in line, and I am absolutely part of the regiment at that point.
Almost like gymnastics isn't, not that it wasn't fun. I'm sure there was fun in it. Like you still loved it, but gymnastics just got really serious, in other words.
Yeah, that I finally got with the program. And that program was you just listen and do exactly as I say, and you will be acceptable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so what happened shortly after coming back from a pretty huge injury like that?
A few things happened. One is that I quickly went from class 3. I didn't know what was going to happen, but suddenly I'm in class 1 and very quickly into junior B elite. And I think around that progression were a few things. One is the arm did get better, but it never got its mobility back. That's for sure. The left arm could never completely rotate outwardly as it did before, and I could never completely touch my shoulder again. So I started trying to compensate for that in other ways. Right. The second thing that happened, I did get moved up. So one of the Olympians ended up living with my sister, myself, and this other boarder. She used to take us to practice together, and we had to learn. Your former head coach, Geza Pozar, used to have this like cool morning practice routine thing that was really neat. So I remember getting to do that. And it was with the 88 Olympians.
I'm sure we probably did the same routine because he had a choreographed routine that we did.
It was so cool. The music was cool. Everything was cool about it. And I remember feeling pretty intimidated because I think I was only like 11.
Wow.
I was pretty small. And I had these women who were icons and amazing humans. And every time they kind of enter the building or enter the space, everyone got really quiet because here was Bella's six pack. But I didn't stay in for very long. I remember being at some kind of clinic and it was the middle of summer, but I was freezing and feverish. Turned out I had chicken pox and I ended up coming back down, but being moved into now group 1.
You
So
get moved down from a group because you got chicken pox?
I don't remember,
Oh, okay.
but yes. Let's just say yes.
You get kicked out of a group
Sounds good.
because you got sick. Okay.
Something like that.
Interesting.
I think the idea was to try me out, and then it didn't work out for whatever reason, which is fine. And instead, they had me go through from class 3 to class 1 to junior B elite kind of as quickly as possible. I did have to compete a class 1 event. I vaguely remember learning that. And then I do some clinic thing with this judge who I adored, and she was a really tough beam judge, but I absolutely loved her. I learned so much from her. I do this clinic with her, and then suddenly I'm going to some meet to qualify for junior B. And now I'm 11 and I qualified, obviously. Don't remember that meet. Everything in my memory now is just like a bunch of different states in there.
Is there first place winnings in there? Because there are in my head.
My first junior B elite meet.
Well, also in class 1. I don't know
No,
if you remember this.
I don't clearly.
You won class 1 too.
I did?
Yeah, I totally remember because I watched those videotapes over and over again.
But like just a class 1 meet or
Pretty sure it was like a state or something like that. I think you were class 1.
No recollection.
But you won everything, I think, except for like one event. You cleaned the competition.
Oh, that's fun. I do remember about class 1, the routines were fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love compulsory routines.
We have this ongoing conversation how we wish compulsories were back in gymnastics.
Yeah. Oh, they're so fun. I just remember really enjoying mastering it. And I really enjoyed the 1992 floor and beam routines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The bar one was harder because and looking back, my elbow problem on the left side, I realize now, made it practically impossible to do a particular skill as well as I could have.
Yeah.
Anyway, so junior B elite, I think we're in 1989-ish in the beginning. And this is the story that Joanne shares when she came, because my first nationals, which was American Classic in Oakland, I freaking bombed. I don't know what that means, but I just did. And after that massive arm break, the biggest thing that I learned, I think, from that point is just put your head down and keep working. Just get better. Shove all of the criticisms and the ignoring from your coaches or whatever. So I don't really remember much between American Classic to US Classic. I just know by US Classic, I told myself I'm going to do better. I want to compete better. I want to feel better. And I had a blast. That actual competition in San Antonio, Texas, 1989, I don't remember much of it, but I remember really enjoying my beam routine and winning. I do remember getting up on a podium.
So, a fun fact about your win at US Classic, I have to share because I know this is hard for you to admit, but we did some research to see how many gymnasts at that time of any sort of Asian American descent were national champions. And at the time, there were only 2, Sabrina Marr and Do Yamashiro.
Both kick-ass.
Which amazing gymnasts, icons.
Mm-hmm.
Which would mean that you are one out of a few that have won a national title, which is incredible accomplishment. And, you know, for me at this time, for both of us, it's a pretty white sport.
Yeah.
There's not many people that look like us. And so, you know, me as a little girl watching you, and granted, we're closely related, but to see somebody that looks like me, so you can only imagine the effect that could have had on many little girls who look like you. It's really badass.
I haven't thought of that.
Yeah, like it's really cool.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so you win nationals. What happens next?
Let's see. There's a sort of a collage of a bunch of really fun things that happened thereafter. One is I have to go home to California and having a great time, getting to share that with everybody. There was the really fun exhibition called the Crest Symphony of Sports in Vail, Colorado, which was sort of intertwining iconic figure skaters, rhythmic and artistic gymnastics. They put them all together and they were amazing. It was myself and 2 of my teammates, and we were all pretty young, and it was really exciting. When you think about it, they're just sending off a bunch of 11-year-olds. And we got to just meet really cool people. Hands down, one of the nicest human beings in the history of human beings is Bart Connor. 100%. The incredible, wonderful, very kind, very sweet Christy Phillips was there, which was so cool. She was in our gym, the generation above us, and just so kind.
Yeah.
And for me, who was really, really cool, was meeting Diane Durham, because, there wasn't a lot of women of color in gymnastics. So to see her, and she's so graceful and so powerful and beautiful. Everybody was so gracious, just having a good time. I got to do floor. It was supposed to be aired in Texas. Something came up, so we couldn't see it.
So it definitely aired in California. I totally remember that because our parents were in the kitchen talking and my dad had taped it and I was watching because I knew there was a possibility of you being on, and it came on and I screamed and ran into the kitchen. I freaked out, literally freaked out. And I was like, Laura's on the TV. And everybody ran into the living room. And I don't know if we were just having dinner with your parents or if there's a couple cousins. I vaguely remember another cousin being there. And we watched your routine and it was so cool. Like it was amazing. And the funny thing is it triggers another memory. When I was a child, we went to another similar exhibition when I was a little girl, and it was my parents and your mom. And it was just a gymnastics exhibition. I don't think there was figure skating with it, but Bart Connor was in the audience, and your mom, bless her heart, because she is one bold, fiery woman. She went up to Bart Connor and she introduced herself as Laura Segundo's mother. And she introduced me. This is my niece who's also a gymnast. And Bart Connor, he was so flabbergasted that we came up to him to introduce ourselves that he was so kind. He ended up introducing us to the group that he was in. And apparently his coach was sitting next to him. And his coach also was so impressed that we were related to Laura Segundo. And they ended up talking to us for a little bit. And he was so nice. And I just remember like being proud, like, oh my gosh, my cousin must have had some incredible impact on this gymnastics legend. Right. But yeah, I mean, it was really, really cool. He was really just sweet.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Joy. Really appreciate that.
Yeah. I also think he thought you were fucking good. So, as you were. So, what happens next?
I think this is the beginning of Marta reminding us that I'm young. It's just a few years away from Barcelona. So
Okay,
I have
can we really quickly talk about who Marta Caroli is for those who do not know who she is?
I think most of you might have at least heard the name Caroli. And Bella and Marta were the couple that owned the gym. You might hear about Bella Caroli, and then you see Mary Lou Retton and they're hugging. And Bella was serious too as well, but he was sort of the more demonstrative-esque person. But Marta, when she entered the room, a pin would drop. Like it got so quiet. She was the very serious one. I guess by impression, you would imagine Marta really controls everything. So when Marta would talk, you listen. And if she said to you, which she said to me, you're going to have to start going to meets, international ones, because we need to get you used to being on the world stage. Because in the beginning, everyone's going to freak out. Everyone's going to not do well. And you have to sort of groom yourself out of that and get to a place where you're comfortable being on a world stage. And we want you to peak right at 1992.
Got it.
And we had this talk, and she's like, you're at a perfect age because you're starting to grow and develop your skills, and then you're getting stronger. And I mean, I'm still 11, I think, at this point, or 12. So I started going to more meets, and one was in Canada. I think pretty much I bombed. But it was actually, we had so much fun. I think it was like France, United States-esque kind of meet. I don't remember. All I remember is back then, there's no chaperones. Your chaperone, quote unquote, was kind of like your coach, but not really. So Rick was our coach on that trip. But afterwards, it was basically Team France and Team United States. And we're all a bunch of like little girls. I think we were like 11, 12, maybe 13, maybe 14. I have these old pictures of us running around like drinking Coke, like drinking Coca-Cola, jumping all over the beds, just giggling and having so much fun. The other thing that was also really cool, since we're on the national team now, we got to go to the US training camp, which that was really fun to meet a bunch of other girls and get to spend time. And then somewhere around there, I did start having problems with my right elbow. It was being more achy. It was kind of locking every so often. And we went to Dr. Camp and he said, you have these bone chips that are developing. Your cartilage is sort of weakened because of all the pounding. And the bone chips, what they're doing, they're going out into the joint. The joint has sort of a very nutrient-rich fluid, and that causes things to grow because it maintains your joint health, right? But it's actually causing the bone chips to sort of grow, and it's tearing up your joint. So it's feeling like tendonitis, but it's actually it's being created by this bone chip problem.
And as much as I love Dr. Kant, and he was a really nice person, of course, it was pretty alarming news. We were told to get a second opinion. The Crowleys referred us to Dr. Jensen. We went to Dr. Jensen. He said it was not bone chips, and instead it was tendonitis. You're fine. Do physical therapy.
Jeez.
And we believed him. And so we started going to physical therapy in downtown Houston, where Dr. Jensen's physical therapy clinic was. And we'd get up, crack of dawn. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. Natalie and I would be driving us out there. There was a toll road with those old school coins you'd toss in there multiple times a week. And it would be before practice.
On. If you're getting up at 5 a.m, what time is your appointment with Dr. Jensen?
Yeah, that's a good question. It'd probably be like 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. I might have even gone there before morning practice because I remember we had morning practice a lot at Crowley's, and I was at a physical therapy clinic every day.
I don't know any physical therapist who opens up their practice at 5:30, or let's be generous. Let's say it opens at 6:30.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think how wild for the Crowleys to have such control over a medical practice and a physical therapy practice for young people to be able to go that early into the morning.
Well, and also they're giving diagnosis that the Crowleys want to hear, it sounds like, too.
Yeah, feels like that, doesn't it?
It does feel like that. Like there's sort of this partnership with your doctors and your coaches. And so then who do you trust?
Yep. With medical physicians like these, who needs enemies?
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
So what happens next?
The wins start happening. US Classics, Symphony of Sports,
so
all those things
basically,
happening.
you don't take time off.
No.
You keep competing, you keep training, you deal with quote unquote tendonitis. Correct. You take that diagnosis.
Right. And I want everyone to know during this time, I'm not the only one. There's lots of gymnasts living like this.
So I have a quick question for you. For those people who say that's athletics, that's being an athlete. You ice, you heat, you deal with pain. That's part of being a professional athlete.
Right.
What is your take on that?
The only difference when it comes to gymnastics versus when they think of those quote unquote professional athletes, they're thinking of grown men. So they're thinking of basketball players, football players, but I appreciated hearing from a particular person we talked to not too long ago, an author, about this idea of male athletes. They're not as competitive until they've gone through puberty. But for gymnastics, and particularly gymnastics at the time, maybe less so now, because I feel like the agility, the strength, and the power that is required to do these incredible tricks that these women are doing right now requires that you have more muscle mass. But back then, that wasn't the look, that wasn't the aesthetic that judges wanted, that gymnastics wanted. They wanted these wafy, tiny gymnasts. So I think if you were to put a grown man through that, and he chose to do that, that is one thing. But when you're a child, and your bones are developing and your body is developing and hormones haven't even kicked in, and we are under strict diet to ward off hormones, to ward off the puberty.
It's also this perspective to give our listeners of being that young and your bones not being fully developed and having these really extreme injuries at your young age. So when you talk about not having mobility in that elbow since you were 11 years old and now you're 46, and you can look down on your arm, both arms, and see sort of the wear and tear of those injuries and how they affected you till this day.
Right.
And particularly it's because when you're at that age, your bones are softer and they aren't able to take the load of a 46-hour work week because that's not normal.
Yeah, it's such a good point.
And then later on, you and I both deal with chronic pain. There's hormonal issues as we get older. People have periods far later that have ramifications down the road as well. So when people say, well, that's just part of the sport, I say, but not for children. I think at the time, and this is my personal opinion, having lived through it, I don't think there was a need to train children 46 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. There's nothing healthy about that. There was no need to starve a child. There's a line between training somebody for them to be in an optimal environment, in an optimal condition, to be the best athlete that they can be. And then we're looking at exploitation and abuse, really harming somebody, not the best interest of the child, not the best interest of the athlete, regardless of the age. It has everything to do with whatever that adult is going through. That's my opinion, at least, having lived through it.
Yeah, I agree. And another side note, the fact that you were fucking winning when you had a bone chip in your arm or tendonitis, either
And that's just one. I also had tendonitis in both wrists, tendonitis in both ankles. So I don't know if you see any of the pictures of US Classics, but I have two taped ankles
up all over the place.
And there was also these, I don't know what they're called. They look like braces, but I have them on floor because my ankles were thrashed as well. But
okay, even more reason to be like, what the fuck? You're winning. And you're winning. Jeez Louise.
Again, it's like the glass of water and you start pouring some kind of toxicity into it. You take something that is pure and has really wonderful talent, and instead of helping it, growing it, raising it, nurturing it, what I would expect a good coach to do, they wear it down and use it up. And if it doesn't keep up, they spit it out. That's how it felt. So I'm just going to say this right now, looking back as a 46-year-old woman right now with children of my own, I would actually venture to say, you're not great coaches. I'm not going to lie. What kind of a coach takes their talent and exploits it to a point where they can't move, they can't feel? I mean, I'm not talking even physically. I'm talking mentally, emotionally, spiritually, soulfully. And then if that person doesn't do what you want it to do, you just toss it aside and just move on to the next one. That, to me, you're a shitty coach. There's no coaching in that.
Yeah. You're not only just a shitty coach, you're a shitty person.
Shitty person.
Yeah.
To me, great coaches look at somebody and say, you know, I see it. How do we develop it? How do we raise it so you have confidence that you are feeling good about yourself? Because we're all going to mess up. We're all going to fail. We're all going to make errors. That's normal.
Yeah.
But how can we take that and build you up, not break you down more? Oh, you're injured? What can we do to help you recuperate, replenish, recover, and come back even stronger?
Yeah.
And not just physically, emotionally and mentally.
Yeah.
To me, that's a good coach. And what we went through was a bunch of really shitty coaching by fear people.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say that now. And I'm proud, fucking proud to say that for once, because I'm so tired of looking back and hearing, oh my God, look at all the wins. We were so, as a country, so obsessed with trying to win these gold medals at the sacrifice of, you know, and we have amazing gymnasts that did get through that. That's the thing. 92, 96. I mean, these are incredible people. I don't know if the word is luck because they put their bodies through a lot too. And then we also have thousands of other gymnasts that are like you and me and are sitting here and they thought, oh, I didn't make it. It wasn't that big a deal. And we are told that as we are sitting here with arthritis in our knees and our shoulders and our backs and missed discs and all kinds of things, thinking that we weren't that good. But the reality was, oh my God, we went through some shit.
Yeah.
We're amazing, extraordinary athletes. And I hope you all hear that. I hope you let it sink in and really, really own that. You all were incredible. And it has been an honor. It is an honor to be counted as this incredible group of women in the 80s and 90s who put up with some shit. Sorry.
That's okay.
I just have to say that in this part right now because it's fucking true.
Yeah. Are you overwhelmed, stuck, maybe disconnected in your relationship? Would you like to find more clarity and balance? Look no further than Laura Collins, LCSW, providing individual and couples counseling with warmth and empathy, a safe space to navigate life's challenges and connect you with your shine. Laura also specializes in working with current and former athletes and coaches' performance anxiety to post-competition transition. She understands the unique mental demands of the sports world. Curious to dive deep? Check out the links in our show notes for additional information about our practice and how we can support you in your journey. Okay, what's next?
Okay. Now by 1990, my elbow is getting worse. It's really aching. It's really locking. And what happened is that the cartilage sort of got popped a hole. The bone chips are now in the joint and now it's ripping up the joint. So now we've made our way back.
So it's not tendonitis.
It's not tendonitis. Yeah. That doctor was wrong. Absolutely wrong. You were terribly wrong. So we go back to Kent Stewart and Fitzgerald. And this time I go see Dr. Stewart. Dr. Stewart was one of the kindest human beings in the history of human beings. Absolutely adorable, had like a little space between his teeth. It was so sweet. What I liked about him most of all is because I felt like he could read me. And I was so scared of what it would mean because every time I had heard, we have to remove cartilage and take these bone chips out because they're continuing to rip up your joint. And then after that it is a long recovery because now you have no more cartilage. That scared the bejesus out of me. And Dr. Stewart was really good about trying to deliver that to a 12-year-old.
Yeah, that's another element that I can't.
Because now I'm
imagine.
like, what does that mean? Can I not do gymnastics anymore?
Yeah. Then
I started getting scared. Like, what does that mean? Am I going to always either do gymnastics with pain or can I not do gymnastics anymore?
How do you make that decision? Yeah.
I can't negotiate that in my head.
Yeah.
So I end up having this surgery, which I have a picture of, I can share social media. It was a bone chip that was so big. And they did do arthroscopic. So they had like the little wands that go in there and they had to cut it up and took out 3 pieces and it was like a huge chunk. So at this point now I have no cartilage in my joint because it's either ripped up or they had to clean it up and the cartilage doesn't grow back. So I am told
hitting bone.
It's bone hitting bone. And then around that same time, I get an invitation for the World Sports Fair in Tokyo. And Marta said, you have to go. You have to go. It's 2 years before the Olympics. This is perfect timing. You're a perfect age, 12. And I remember going back and forth in my head, but I just had surgery.
And it's supposed to be a long healing process.
8 weeks after the surgery, pretty sure it was 8 weeks. It was not long at all. I did not have time to recover at physical therapy, but I'm at that arena in Japan.
There's so many questions on that because I coach and I was a young coach. I mean, I was like in my 20s when I was coaching. So I think in my mind, if I was coaching an athlete that had just had major surgery and they're telling me that there's this competition that she needs to go to, I would immediately be like, well, she needs to heal, right? Like we need to send an alternate. But let's say for some stupid reason, I make that stupid decision and I let that kid compete, or I decide to let that kid compete. There has to be a medical release. There has to be a doctor that says, okay, we need to medically release her because it's a liability since you're a minor. Like it's one thing if you were a 22-year-old adult saying, it's my body, I can do whatever I want to, I'm going to do this, but you're not. You're a little girl.
Right.
And you have no agency in that. You cannot say, this is my body. I'm going to make that decision for myself. What's happening is Marta Crowley, who has the power, not only over a little girl's body, but over a decision over a doctor. Yeah. And she is making all these decisions on her own where she is saying, that is my body. That is mine. And she is going to compete because we have a timeline.
So true.
And I need a champion.
Yeah.
She's going on that floor in Tokyo and she's going to compete whether or not she is ready. And whatever the time frame it is to get her ready for the competition, you need to cut that in half.
Yeah.
Like that's psychotic. It's crazy.
It's absolutely psychotic. The last arm break was through somebody else's decision. And now I'm venturing into it again. And I still remember at some point saying, okay, and my stomach sunk. And I remember getting to work, trying to get myself back into it so I could get, I was going to physical therapy. I'm still like trying to move the arm, just trying to get mobility back from the surgery. And now I'm already back on bars and beam and I'm not well at this point. I'm now hurting.
How do you find the ability to do that? Do you feel like you're just shutting off and it's like brainwashed and you just like, I'm just going through these movements, but it's like an outer body situation? How do you, in pain, all those things, how do you muster up the strength to go in after 8 weeks after this surgery?
I don't really remember.
Wow. Okay.
I just remember you just do it.
Yeah. Like you don't have a choice.
And again, like this is the thing about the change in personality thing. I have no recollection about having gotten through it. I remember I bombed the meet.
definitely bombed the meet. I think I beat a Russian on beam, and the only reason why I remember that is that because Rick again was my coach there, and he's like, "Hey, look, you beat a Russian." I do remember witnessing. I witnessed a coach on another team from another country slap the bejesus out of one of his gymnasts, and I was so taken aback. And even Rick, like, kind of turned myself and my teammate and said, "Go over this way." Nobody stopped that person. Nobody said anything. Maybe they did afterwards. I don't know. But in the gym in front of all of us, I remember hearing that sound of a hand hitting skin and us walking away and thinking to myself, this is so fucked up. But I was like, well, at least my coach doesn't do that. I remember saying that to myself, like, well, at least
he's never slapped me in my face.
Right. Yeah. And what was really cool about Japan is that we got to have that layover in Los Angeles, right? So for y'all listening, when I went to Japan, there was a stop in LAX and my whole family showed up. I got to hang out with Joy and my grandparents, and it was just so good to see them, especially just during that time, because I knew my body was not my own at that point. I wasn't connected with it in the same way because I was just sitting there worried about, well, I'm still hurting, but I don't want to disappoint, and I just have to focus. If I just focus, I'm going to be okay. So getting to see you all at that airport was like, it was so heart-filling, soul-filling. Came at like such an important time to just be able to get my ass onto that plane and to Tokyo. But of course, I bombed the meet. I was sitting in the hotel room thinking like, shit, I got to go back and have to face everybody at the gym. And we get back, and I'm having some jet lag, and I'm just thinking, I don't want to go to the gym. I have to wake up in a couple hours and go to morning practice, and I just don't want to. So my sister's asleep. It's probably like 3:00 in the morning or something. I came downstairs and I sat at our little table. We had these cute little director's chairs, sitting in one of those chairs. And I thought, just be so much easier if I just wasn't here. So I did go to the kitchen and I did take out an instrument, wondering what it would be like if I just wasn't here tomorrow. And then I had thoughts of my sister and you, Joy, my mom, my dad. And I thought, it was one thing to break my own heart because I didn't do well and I felt ashamed. It was another thing to break everybody else's hearts by just not being there altogether. So I put the thing away and I just sat there and I didn't even cry. I never cried. There's another thing. I never cried as a little one. I cry far more after having children. I mean, I'll see like an ASPCA thing and immediately start crying, which is the moment you hear Sarah McLachlan singing, I will gush. But I go through something like that and there's no feelings. Just sitting there thinking, I just don't want to go. I don't want to have to face the gym tomorrow. But I did, get up and you keep going. All right. So thanks for listening about that. I know it's heavy. So the last meet that I ever went to was US Classics, Denver, Colorado in 1990. At this point, I am in just survival mode. I have a left arm that's not cooperating. It doesn't have full mobility. I have a right arm that's now persistently aching and in pain, and it was still continuing to lock, which tells me that probably more bone chips had probably broken off at that point. Who knows? And I think the most frustrating part was not being able to control my body in a way that I had been used to. Mm-hmm. So mastering things in the way that I liked it to, the thing that I loved the most, I couldn't do it as much as I wanted. So I didn't do well. And I thought I was in dead last place, which looking back, Joy, you reminded me that even if I was last place, it would have been like the best of the country. But back then, thinking I was in last place to me meant I was like a horrible human being. As it turned out, it wasn't last place, but still, that's besides the point. I remember falling off bars. And then I think I had rolled off beam, a stupid piece of the compulsory routine. And beam is my favorite event. It's the thing that I excelled at the most. So my last event was beam, optional day. And I was just at this point like, oh, fuck off. the equivalent of what a 12-year-old would say. I definitely wouldn't have said that. Fudge it all, I think I would have said. And
Screw it.
I just told myself, forget it. Like, I've screwed up this whole day. This whole meet sucks. This year has been sucky. And I got up there and was like, I'm just going to enjoy being. I do very consciously remember making that decision. And I rocked it. I rocked that last beam routine. I remember after the dismount, I got off and Marta said, see, now that's what you're supposed to do. Lauda, you're back. Kind of like that, which felt really good.
Really good.
Because, everybody knew that I was having kind of a tough year. And that was it. After US Classics, I go back to the gym and things have changed. My beam coach, who I loved and adored, left. But shortly before she leaves, our other coach, Rick, is getting like even more salty in some ways. He starts doing these things like we'd be, getting our grips on in the morning. He'd say, you have a minute to get your grips on. He'd look at his watch and he'd say 60, 45, 30, 20. And that's the way he would actually 10, 9, 8. He wasn't really giving us 60 seconds. We'd be frantically trying to get their grips on. And at that point, there is a rumor that he is with one of our teammates' moms.
Okay.
And we all kind of know these things. And I don't know if this is like playing into his more saltiness or whatever, but he's starting to do this thing in these morning practices about the grips. And one day he says to us in group 1, if you don't get your grips on fast enough, you're going to condition for the rest of the day. And none of us do. He gets down to 0. And I don't even know if the girlfriend's daughter got her grips on fast enough. It doesn't even matter. But she and this other gymnast were allowed to stay on bars while the rest of us started conditioning. And we conditioned all day. We in morning practice, the second we got back, all the way down until 9 o'clock at night, because group 1 in general tended to be the first ones in and the last ones out. We conditioned so hard, I couldn't walk for a few days. And our old beam coach, who I loved, I still remember, she's like, 3rd day is going to be the worst. Is everyone okay? She at least checked in with us. None of us could walk on day 3.
Jeez. So for those of you who don't know what conditioning is, every gymnast knows what it is. Basically, it's strength exercises like pull-ups, chin-ups, but with gymnastics, there's a little bit more complexity because you're really using your full body and it's based on endurance as well as strength. And so you're running a lot, or you're jumping and you're hopping and you're doing all these things. And so to condition from the beginning of practice, when you start really early, which I'm assuming is like 6:30 in the morning, and then you go to school and you come back and you're still conditioning till the wee hours of night. It's basically having a 6-hour strength workout with no rest. And so that's a lot.
Oh, I was sweating. I remember going home, I couldn't feel my legs. It felt like rubber. So things like that started happening more often. This conditioning obsession that he was on. So that was one thing. The second thing that was happening was that our beam coach left, and I loved her. She was the perfect amount of Laura, get your butt in gear, and also like, Laura, I love you. And of course, true to form, nobody's going to be processing any of your thoughts and feelings with you at that time as a kid. Nobody cares about that. So she leaves. And she's, of course, saying goodbye to us and giving us hugs and all the things. But now this other person comes to replace her. And she was absolutely nice enough. I just think I was in a space where I was just feeling really out of control. Everything around me was changing. My body wasn't responding. My coach is doing this. Like, now we're getting nervous about getting our grips on fast enough. It was just stupid. It was crazy. So I go to morning practice one day, and I have this memory of seeing my coach, Rick, and then this person who would eventually become his girlfriend. But at the time, they weren't necessarily together. But he used to have an office that was right off the floor in gym 2 of the Crowleys. And I remember looking, just kind of stretching, and I look over, and she came in and then kind of gave him a nuzzle, like a hug. And I was like, ugh. I mean, they must be really close. They're good friends. Wow, gross. And I'm just going on with my life, not even thinking of it.
I'm dying because I can see you do that at that age.
It's like, bleh. At some point, it was summertime. I remember because it was really dark outside. Again, we're the last group in. In gym 1, there was a tumbling strip, and it was really hot. So we had the garage door open because Crowley's had 3 gyms
And they really very rarely put the air conditioner on, except for the 6-pack team. But the rest of us, it was just put those garage doors open. So it was that nighttime, and we're standing in line, and something happens where the teammate of mine, whose mother is now involved with our coach, her other parent shows up, and ensues a confrontation that I can't bring about here. But I bring this up because that confrontation directly impacted everybody's lives on that tumbling strip thereafter. Very shortly later, Rick is told that he's supposed to leave the gym, and now he's going to Posars, but not without one of our last practices with him. And no matter what I can think of past of Caroli's, and there's really great things. There's so many wonderful things in terms of like my teammates and some coaches and dance coaches and things, really wonderful victories. And there's really, really hard things, instances of abuse. But I can always come back to this, which was a moment of grace in such chaos, I think, in life. After that situation with that other parent, we're on vault. Vault was often an event that we ended on. So it'd be like 9:30 at night. Again, the last group in the gym. And at some point, Rick asks all of us to come down to the end of the vault. We're standing in these mats behind the vault, and he's telling us that he's going to be leaving to go to Posars. I think he goes around and he says, like, it's been an honor to be your coach. And he kind of tells all of us how much he cares about us and yada, yada, yada. He goes, does anyone have anything to say? Now, I'm 12. So first of all, I'm a kid. I have no idea. I don't understand, affairs or any of those things. I really don't get it. I just see like I said about the morning practice, but I do know what's happening right now. And I do know why it's happening. And I know that we're on the verge of a huge major change. It's going to very, very directly impact this group of girls that are my closest people.
Yeah.
And I am still one of the youngest people in this group.
Yeah.
So a lot of these girls to me are like big sisters. They're teammates, they're friends, they're confidants. So I'm staring in the space between all of our feet. I don't even know what to do. I would look at him. What do we say? What do we do? But in the kind of the periphery of my eye to the right, I see one of the older gymnasts in our group. This is phenomenal gymnast. And I just see her shoulders shaking, going up and down. Like this. And I kind of like, what is going on? I kind of look up and I see she's laughing. She's chuckling. And her best friend in that group was standing right next to her. And those two were inseparable. They were fabulous. They were absolutely adorable together. And then she starts laughing. And then before I noticed, they're kind of like, if you could call them team captains of our like little group one, that's what they were. And of course, all of us start laughing.
Yeah, I'm
and
sure.
It was awesome. It was just a moment of like
satisfaction.
You know what? You brought this upon yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You brought this upon yourself. You are going to cause havoc tomorrow and all kinds of things, but you brought this upon yourself. So I've got nothing to say to you, man.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you can treat us the way you want to treat us, but at the end of the day, you made your own decision. You made your bed. Literally.
I was like,
yeah. And he just says to us, thanks, guys. One more vault and you're done.
Okay.
Yeah. We're like running, we're walking back, and then we're just laughing, and we do the last vault. And then, of course, the next day, everything explodes. He's gone, and who's going to replace him? It's like absolute chaos.
So and what happens? Yeah.
The next coach comes up, and he's a really nice person. But of course, as people who have been there for a few years at that point, and to have him replace your coach when you've been seeing him as not the next person in line after Bella, then it's, it's just too much change. It's hard to rectify in your head. It was tough at this point. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And then starts the exodus of the people that I love the most, which is these group one girls.
Yeah.
So one ends up going to another gym, and another one starts going to another gym. And then now I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Meanwhile, I'm still having problems with my elbows, and I'm still going to physical therapy. And my diary is saying things like, I don't know what to do. I hate my life. I don't know what to do. And my sister doesn't know what to do. And I'm writing in my diary that it says that, my family doesn't think I'm taking things seriously, but I think I'm just really lost at this point. They don't know what to do either.
Yeah.
Going to another gym is not an option. We don't know where else to go. Where are we supposed to go?
Well, especially if you're at the best gym in the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, I get moved up again.
Not quite sure if it happens before I get to go back to Los Angeles or after, but two things really happened that was really big at the end. This is the very, very end. One is that when I'm in Los Angeles, I don't know how I'm connected to this doctor, but I end up getting an MRI on both elbows during that time. I don't know whose idea it was. I don't know where it came from, but it was a great idea because that MRI is looked at by not Dr. Jensen or any of these doctors in Texas. It gets looked at by outside doctors. And then I think it gets sent to Dr. Stewart, who has said, all the things that he has said before. It is validated, I believe.
With this other doctor.
Correct. Which is, I have arthritis at this point. I have irritation in both elbows. There's bone chips starting to proliferate in the left side as well. And basically, they're like, she needs to stop doing what she's doing right now. Otherwise, she's going to have very severe joint problems in her elbows in the future. And I'm 12. So their recommendation is take a year off. Let your bones heal, get bigger, get stronger, as like literally get taller, and let your bones heal and get bigger. And then go back to gymnastics, which at that point I'm thinking, well, there's no option for that. I would lose out on my chance for the Olympics at that point, but that's later.
Yeah.
In the meantime, when I go back to Houston, I am moved up to the six pack. And at this point, I'm with people who used to be in group 1, and we are used to going to each other's birthday parties and that kind of stuff. But now it's just a completely change of characters. People aren't talking to each other. It's very bizarre for me to not be able to laugh and joke in line with the girls that I've seen back in the day. The last thing that I remember of my life in Curly's was going to the ranch. My sister actually packed a bunch of Snicker bars and hid them way into my bag and was like, do not tell anybody about this because I know they're going to starve you. You make sure you eat this when you get back to your thing. Again, it was so weird to not have friends when we were friends. I was used to being able to hang out with these girls. There was only one person that did. I can't name her, but if she's listening, I absolutely thank you so much. But she actually looked out for me. She was absolutely sweet as sugar, as always, but could only be at like under the table style, has to be quiet. But I remember she was like, Laura, come with me. And again, I'm the youngest one there. I'm the smallest one there. She takes me, we kind of like end up in a loft space together. But she was the only one that kind of looked out for me because I was so shocked that these girls who had sleepovers with them suddenly were not talking to each other.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm coming back from vacation. So I'm not really in shape anyway. And now I'm also having these elbow issues. And now I'm not with my sister. And so you're not really eating that much. Bella would get you up really early and take you on what's called the Ghost Trail, which was just like a huge running area around a set of trees. And he would be on a 4-wheeler and he would say, I'm giving you 30 seconds. And if I catch up to you, you're going to condition for the rest of the day. Jeez. So me, who's like tiny and I don't have a lot of endurance. Floor was, as much as I like dancing, I was strong, but putting it all together, my third pass, I was always winded. So running for me, that's not my favorite thing to do. We start running and I'm like running for my life because I don't want the 4-wheeler to catch up to me. And I would just, my heart would be out of my mouth and I'd be so scared. By the end of the week, I don't know who it was, but somebody, oh man, she was so brave, but somewhere halfway through turned and just went into the forest because it was an oval and we followed her. And it was shortcut. Amazing. Go to the other side. And I remember just thinking my heart's about coming out of my mouth because I'm scared. Because what if he sees us? But we get to the end and nobody said anything. And that was actually really nice. Proud of y'all. But yeah, I remember being on the phone. There was a payphone. I talked to my parents. My parents and my sister told me about the results from the MRI and the external doctor who confirmed and validated Dr. Stewart's finding as well. And so I'll have to say this here. There's a lot of times people will say, why are you complaining? Because you're just a kid. So what's wrong with your parents? Why didn't your parents do anything? And I will always say it was an entire culture, right? We were all complicit in drinking the Kool-Aid of this coaching by fear, Eastern Bloc mentality and modality style of coaching. That's what it was. There was no getting around it. I think my parents, I know your parents, my parents were so supportive.
Yeah.
They did the best that they could. And they thought that they were showing love and helping their daughter achieve her dream. I will never, ever blame them for not being able to. And there's a lot of things they didn't know. They were in California.
Yeah.
Natalie was with me. Natalie was a kid herself.
Yeah.
And we're just doing what we can do because we're all, like you said, buying into this dream. We're all working towards it together.
Yeah.
But this was the time that my sister and my mom, my dad, they united and said, Laura, it's time to come home.
Mm.
And I remember in that moment thinking, thank God this nightmare is over.
Wow.
So I don't even remember really saying bye to anybody. I think I was too ashamed to say anything. Then absolutely the feeling of failure and shame really started hitting hard. But I think, we're trained to not think of that and sit with it for so long. So my next thing was, well, I can't do it. I can't do it. Doctor said I can't do it. So I'm going to just like pack up my stuff and go. But that phone call at the payphone to getting back to California just felt like a zombie walk. It felt like an out of body experience. I couldn't believe I was like, it was gone, just gone. What am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
I don't even know who I am anymore. I've been saying I'm a gymnast for years.
Well, and people were saying you were a gymnast for years too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I lost my identity. I lost my friends. I lost my world. I lost the one thing that was my expression and my talent. The one place that I could, dance and routines were the way of my expression. And I didn't have words. There was no words. There was no going to therapy and talking about it. There was no community that's like, let's help you through this transition from this elite gymnast status to now being a 12-year-old girl back then it was called junior high. I went back and I was like, what the fuck just happened? The 12-year-old version of that. I would say that feeling of lost happened once Rick left and just sat and stayed like fog, a cloud just sitting on top and consuming everything for years.
Holy moly. Well, the next time we chat, you're re-entering into, I guess what we would say, the ordinary world and how you cope with that. And that would be interesting to hear getting back into your life. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you for this space. Thank you for us. And thank you all for listening and for being part of our community space. We just love you all so much as well.
Yeah. Can we also just do a quick shout out because you have gotten a couple text messages from former teammates that have been really encouraging. And I think
you too. Our teammates.
Our teammates.
Shout out to you all, our fabulous teammates.
Yeah. Who has been checking in, who has made sure that we feel safe and supported and loved. And it's sort of wild because I don't know how long it's been since you've connected with your teammates, but for some of mine, it's been decades. It's been soul filling, right? So you know who you are and we love you. And we couldn't do this without you.
Yeah. This is what Hahnacity is all about. So for those of you, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us as well. We honor you and love you and hold you and just know that we are in this together.
I love you.
I love you too. I love you more.
I love you most.
Bye.
Up next on Hahnacity, the podcast, Lindsay Dix had the unique position of being both present in Laura's career as her physical therapist and in Laura's childhood as her eventual brother-in-law. 30 years later, Lindsay reflects on seeing her as an elite-level child athlete.
Particularly for Laura, I would see her running around and being giggly and silly like a 12-year-old would be.
Yeah.
And yet, when I saw her in the gym, she was performing at an elite level, which was like, oh my God, this person's a machine. The feats and the things that she could do, it was just like mind-boggling. And so when you treated somebody like that as a patient, it was like I would see her as a 12-year-old, and I would also see her as this, in retrospect, you think about it, it's kind of stupid. I even thought about it that way. But because she was so capable physically, you thought she would be capable mentally and emotionally. You sort of think, well, man, this person is so gifted in this and they're so capable at this, then they must be advanced mentally, emotionally as well. So I probably didn't pay enough attention to the fact that this was a 12-year-old psyche. In fact, probably even less than that because she'd not really got to ever experience being a 12-year-old.
Listen in to Lindsay's reflection on episode 7, PT Pro to Big Bro, on Amazon and Spotify.
Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, please reach out to us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and our website, Hahnacity.com.
Share and follow us on Amazon and Spotify. Help us out and leave a 5-star review. Thanks.